Hi there, good morning and welcome to the Community Health Team's 5th session for Facebook Live. So welcome back to all you who have been tuning in to us over the past few weeks. I'm just going to do a little recap, which I usually do. Week 1, if anybody's got their memory hats on, week 1 we were at Baxter Park and we were trying to give you lots of information and advice and encouragement to get out walking. On week 2, we did the tips for a healthier lifestyle. It was about eating lots of fruit and vegetables, basing your meals on starchy food, don't skip your breakfast, and drinking plenty of water, etc. So that was week 2. Week 3, myself and Ria focused very much on the balance of good health and the Eat Well plate, and we also again focused on your fluid intake. And week 4, which was last week, so if anybody joined me, I was on my own last week, and saying that, Robin helped out quite a bit. We were doing Gentle Keep Fit. So today, we're moving on from that. We're very fortunate today. I've got with me Anne Leslie from Dundee Volunteer and Voluntary Action. That's quite a mouthful, so for short, DVVA. And Anne's going to give us an overview of the volunteering situation within Dundee at the moment. I myself, Alison, I work a lot with volunteers within the community health team, and we have volunteers in a formal and in an informal capacity who help us with all the various groups and activities that we've got on the go. Unfortunately at the moment things are at a standstill, as you know, because of COVID-19, but we're in constant touch with the volunteers and they're still helping us, keeping in touch with other people who attend our groups. I'm just going to go over the thing that I'll go over most weeks because I really like to make sure that you've all got a handle on it. But 2 litres of water, 2 litres of fluid a day if you can, just to keep yourself hydrated. I'm trying so hard to get this message across. Filling up that bottle, keeping it in the fridge. If that's too big for your fridge, no excuses. Get your 1 litre bottle, fill it up, fill your cups up during the day, and that's your 1 litre. Okay? And if you want to know, there's your 500ml bottle, so that's the amount of fluid that you should be taking. And if you're going to have a 500ml, multiply that by 4, and that would be your daily intake. So anything between 1.5 and 2 litres a day. Get yourself a water bottle, fill it up with water, keep it with you all day, every day, and make sure you keep yourself hydrated. Okay, as for exercising, making sure you're using your weights. This is something we did last week, and I can hear you all shouting, we don't have weights. Well, that's okay. Get in the cupboards, get the tins out, and get using the tins as well. So there's no excuses for that. But anyway, I don't want to rattle on too long because the focus of today is very much on volunteering. So I'm just going to have a wee seat and I'm going to have a wee informal chat with one of my colleagues, who's Anne. So without further ado, I'll just ask Anne a couple of questions, if that's okay with you, Anne.
Absolutely fine.
Right, Anne, can you give us an idea about the scale of volunteering in Dundee at the moment?
Absolutely. I think it's actually a lot bigger than what a lot of people would imagine. I'm going to do this by means of just a small quiz. So question number 1 is this. How many volunteers do you think there are in Dundee? That is, volunteers who do structured volunteering, help out at an organisation or a group. It doesn't include, for example, me walking Alison's dog or babysitting for a friend, not these things. So, have a guess, how many volunteers do you think there are in Dundee? Hundreds? Thousands? What do you think? The answer is 32,000, over 32,000 volunteers in Dundee. That is just a number, but if we try and put it into context, that would be something like 13 cared halls. If you can imagine being in City Square and cared hall empties out 13 times, that's how many volunteers there are in Dundee. Or 3 times Dens football stadium. Or to keep it fair, 2.5, 2 3/4 times Tannadice football stadium. You get the picture, it's a lot of volunteers. What do you think, Alison? Did you expect it to be that much?
Absolutely not. 32,000, when you think, you've given a really good analogy there, Anne, about the football stadium. So if you've been to Dens Park or Tannadice, imagine those at full capacity. Granted, over the past few seasons, maybe they haven't been at full capacity, so when you think 32,000, there's 32,000 volunteers. I think Dundee should be really proud of the amount of people that are out there volunteering and giving something back to community, so I'm really quite
It's
staggered by
massive.
that.
I don't have all the figures with me today, but if you multiply it up by the amount of hours that people have volunteered, it really is mind-blowing. It's massive. Question number 2. This is straight from Oscar, that's the Charity Regulator's website yesterday. How many charities do you think there might be in Dundee? So this is groups and organisations that are fully fledged charities and have a charity number. There will also be lots of other voluntary groups and organisations that haven't gone down the route of becoming a charity. So how many charities do you think there might be in Dundee? 20, 40, 100? The answer is 659. Again, a massive amount. With regards to voluntary groups and organisations, I would expect it to be at least the same amount again. So over the size of Dundee, that is a big number.
It sounds like it's a very healthy situation that we've got in Dundee with the amount of organisations there are, voluntary in the voluntary capacity, which is great.
Speaking about organisations, just one other question here. Do you know which national charity has its headquarters for the whole of the UK and the Republic of Ireland in Dundee? There's only one. No takers? The answer is the Brittle Bone Society, a long-established charity based on the corner of Bockhill and Guthrie Streets. So we've got an HQ across the whole country in Dundee. And the last question is, how many volunteering opportunities do you think we might have on our books at Dundee Volunteer and Voluntary Action, which I will now just call DVVA? Few opportunities, 30, 40, 50? At the moment, we're sitting around 350 volunteering opportunities across the city. I do need to state though that this is in normal times. I can't promise that all 350 are available at the moment given the COVID situation. But that's where we are.
Well, that leads really nicely into my next question for you then, Anne. You're saying there's 350 volunteering opportunities. Can you tell us a little bit about what volunteer opportunities there are?
Yeah, sure. So I've got my little ready reckoner here. There's so many different categories of volunteer opportunities. It's almost like an A to Z. I won't go through them all, but just to give you a flavour: administration, advice, advocacy, charity shops, befriending, committee work. I think committee work's a really important one because all those charities and voluntary groups are looked after by volunteers who are on the committee, and that can sometimes be overlooked. So if a volunteer's got a particular skill set, then perhaps an organisation might want to hear from you. Computing, conservation, gardening, driving, finance, fundraising. There is library staff, there's management in business, marketing, Facebook, social media staff, play schemes, sports and outdoors, youth work and tutoring. So quite a range. I should also add that not all volunteering needs to be done for a few hours a week every week. There's also ad hoc volunteering. So for example, if there was a community summer fete, again not this year, being organised, then volunteers could get involved with that. That's just seasonal. Or the same with Christmas events, that's just seasonal. And one final thing to add here is that a lot of volunteering can actually be done from home. So in the current climate, instead of going out and about, which a lot of the services are closed anyway, people can maybe make phone calls from home, checking in on an older person, having a befriending conversation and things. So the range really is quite wide. In addition to that, we produce a regular newsletter for volunteers and potential volunteers, and that's got our most to-date current opportunities on it, and they can be found on our website as well.
I was really interested to hear you just mentioning there about the befriending and people phoning other people maybe just to keep in touch, because during lockdown at the moment there's lots and lots of people that I'm trying to keep in touch with, because obviously my role within my team has changed, and there's some people who are feeling real loneliness and isolation, and to keep in touch with someone is a really important thing to do. So that's a wonderful thing that other people are doing, keeping in touch with others.
It's a really good opportunity. You've maybe heard of a project called Dialogue. They are involved with volunteers doing a morning call, and also another project called Blether Buddies. So the morning call is a sort of short, sharp quick phone call in the morning just to make sure the person's up, about, they're okay, if they've got any appointments, make sure they're all okay for that. The blether buddies are a much longer call, maybe 40 minutes, and having a right good chat with somebody, maybe on a weekly basis. So
that's great. It's good for someone to get a bit of motivation in the morning, you know, with a phone call and someone, you know, getting them ready to go and face whatever the day's going to throw at them. So that's really good to hear that.
On another note, there's a seasonal opportunity that's just arisen. If I could maybe just take a couple of minutes to mention that. And the flu vaccination programme is underway at the moment, and we're looking for a few volunteers to assist in the GP practices, just with the meeting and greeting and directing the patients to the right part of the surgery, bearing in mind social distancing, and then taking them through to the nurse or the GP. So if anybody's interested in that, it's mostly weekdays, there's occasional weekends, and it would be no more than 3 hours. We would need you to fill in some forms for that, application forms, and have a chat with you. That's a current opportunity.
That's good, another very valuable opportunity for people. And I want to ask you this, I'm not quite sure, but is volunteering not just for older people?
That's a really good question. I think that is the image of volunteering, or has been the image of volunteering. However, over the years, that myth has definitely been altered. With the introduction of the Curriculum for Excellence some years ago, there's an awful lot of schools, even from primary age, primary 7, getting young people involved in volunteering, helping the transition when the young pupils go up to secondary school, and then onwards from there. So no, not now, there's an awful lot of young people. And young people, that's between the ages of 12 and 25. If they're doing volunteering, they can get involved with the Saltire Awards, which is a Scottish Government recognised scheme to recognise the hours that young people have spent volunteering. So I think it's after 25 hours, 50, 100, 200 and 500 hours that you can get accreditation for your volunteering. It doesn't cost anything, and it's online, so if you're a young person wanting to do this, go to the website, Saltire Awards, click the button at the top right, it says volunteer, and get started with clocking your hours. And talking about young people volunteering, I think that our cameraman over there, when he was at university, did some volunteering with ourselves when we were Volunteer Centre as a photographer at a volunteering festival. So yeah, good for everyone.
Well, that sounds great, you know, volunteering. You're talking about Robin behind the calendar doing volunteering, and so that's a wonderful thing to know about, because keeping yourself active, Robin, during those times at university and doing something worthwhile, it really does look good on a CV as well, I would think, you know, when someone's looking for another job. Or
yeah, I mean, young people get so many, well, the experience first of all, but the skills, they meet new people, they learn to interact, they'll gain in confidence, so many things. And I think research has shown that if two candidates applying for a job are pretty much the same on paper, if one has got volunteering experience, it's around 90% of employers who take the person with volunteering experience. And I think you, Alison, and I both know people that have been in that situation, so we know that that does work.
Yeah, definitely. That's good. And you've mentioned a couple of things there about why people get involved in what they can get out of it, but is there anything else you can expand on in that? Why do people volunteer? Why are they wanting to volunteer? What's it going to do for them?
Volunteering is definitely a two-way street. So you've got your volunteer on this side, going with their skills, their experience, their motivation, their dedication to get started and learn something new. And you've got your organisation or group on this side, and they are willing to offer probably training, for the volunteer to learn new skills, to meet new people. So definitely a two-way street. It's not just about what they can give, it's what they can get back, and that's very good. Other reasons for volunteering could be to learn new skills, to give something back. It could be to meet new people, to be part of a team, to give me a reason to get out of the house in the morning.
Yeah.
So many different reasons. And actually, when I spoke earlier about the opportunities, one of the hardest inquiries to deal with is if somebody comes and says to us, I want to volunteer, and we say, what would you like to do? And they say, anything, because we've got hundreds of opportunities. So it would be really helpful if people wanting to volunteer could think about why they want to do it, what they would like to get out of it. We would ask the volunteer questions to try and filter down to help them get the right opportunities, but to think about, do you want to be indoors or outdoors? Maybe not a appropriate in the 8th of October, right enough, probably all indoors at the moment, but indoors or outdoors, do you want to be public facing, do you want to be behind the scenes, do you want to do practical stuff, would you rather be office based, that sort of thing, and that will help us to pinpoint some opportunities for a volunteer.
Sounds like it's quite a good process where you're trying to match people into something that's going to really benefit them and benefit the organisation or group that they're going to volunteer at. So that sounds really a positive thing.
And it's useful as well if volunteers could maybe think about, do they want to help a person specifically, an individual person? Do they want to help a group of people? Do they want to help their wider community, for example, doing litter picks or community gardens or whatever? So lots to think about.
Definitely, it sounds really healthy in Dundee for all these volunteering opportunities. But given that we've been unfortunately beset by COVID-19 and over the last 7 months, can you give us an idea of how the landscape's changed for volunteering during this really difficult time?
Completely. Way back on the 23rd of March, it would have been when Boris Johnson made his announcement, it was clear that everything was going to change. By the 24th, everything had closed down, services had stopped. So we had a whole load of volunteers who would normally be going to do their regular volunteering but couldn't because the places were closed. We also had an awful lot of people who were sent home from work or working from home, students that couldn't continue with their course, were facing a very long summer holiday. So we did put out a plea way back at the end of March, and I think we got several hundred volunteers wanting to help out. So the city was split really into 8 community support centres, of which this at Hilltown was one of them. And we coordinated volunteers for each of the 8 community support centres, liaising quite closely with the communities team of Dundee City Council and the empowerment workers. So it was really, really interesting. We had everything from senior researchers, pub managers, builders, teachers, and everything in between, looking to do some volunteering. So the community response was really, really positive.
It's another plus again for the City of Dundee and the people that are within Dundee really rallying to the call to help others. So that's really brilliant to hear as well. So many people you've probably come across over your time with DVVA. Can you tell us any of the feedback that you've got from the volunteers that you've worked with, the organisations worked with over the past years, what they've felt about it?
Certainly. I'll maybe mention a project first of all, because the feedback relates partly to that. But during COVID, we managed to secure some resilience funding for COVID, and it was relating to providing people potentially with undernutrition to give them a meal or more each week and have it delivered by volunteers. So we approached the private school in St Andrews, St Leonard's. They were going to be furloughing their staff in the kitchens and would have preferred not to. So they thought they could maybe do some cooking for the community. So they agreed to cook for our project, which is called Come Dine With Us, and they provided meals, 3 meals a week for 30 diners across Dundee. So that was a volunteer involvement project. We had a volunteer going to St Andrews every week to pick up the meals, to bring them back to Dundee, and a further 6 volunteers delivering the meals every week. So some of the feedback from that project was, I'll just read this out. Having to be volunteering at a certain place at a certain time each day gave me a sense of structure and routine to my days. And I absolutely relate to that, because in the depths of lockdown, every day was like the next day, and it was very difficult to work out exactly where you are. So what this volunteer is saying is on a Wednesday morning, she knew she was going to be delivering those meals for the community, and she worked her week around that. I got back a lot from volunteering, smiles and a natter when otherwise on my own. Thank you for preserving my sanity. Again, a lockdown volunteer who thoroughly enjoyed having a doorstep chat, socially distanced of course, when delivering the meals, and giving her a structure to her week as well, and giving her something to think about through lockdown. I have really enjoyed being part of this initiative. It has benefited me as much as the people to whom I have delivered meals, as it has given me an opportunity to have a break from my home office and actually meet a few people face to face for a socially distanced chat rather than via the computer screen. So to get some human interaction was just fantastic. And of course, it wasn't all about the volunteers. The recipients of the meals were over the moon to be interacting with a volunteer on their doorstep and getting 3 meals a week delivered. So some of their comments were, enjoyed talking to the volunteer, she was a wee gem, so cheery, enjoyed the chats, always on time. The young man who delivered was wonderful, and we will miss my wee pal on a Wednesday. So very appreciative of the work the volunteers were doing. And just to recap, that project, the delivering of the meals was only for 10 weeks during COVID. It's not an ongoing project. And to give you a flavour of what was delivered during the 10 weeks, we had 7 volunteers, that's 1 going to St Andrews and 6 in the city here. We delivered to 266 cumulative diners over 10 weeks, 798 2-course meals, 60 crates of food over 10 weeks, 880 miles driven, and 95 hours of volunteering contributed in the 10 weeks. And that's one tiny project, and you multiply that up across the different localities. Well, that was a citywide project, but across what might be going on at the same time throughout lockdown, it's just a massive effort, really.
Absolutely.
It was really good.
Yeah, that sounds a really successful initiative that was going on there. And just following on from that, and was there any more new initiatives that you found that were created during the lockdown period? Has anything new been established?
Yeah, I mean, I think we know that older people in particular and technology doesn't always work. So there's been funding applied for and sought to provide Chromebooks and iPads to some older people, and that has created a volunteer opportunity for digital champions, we're called. So if it's anybody viewing this that would be interested in giving some assistance to older people to learn how to use their iPad, that would be magnificent. There is training to do this because it's got to be done remotely, which is a bit difficult in itself. However, you don't have to be a technical whiz. We're looking at advising the person how to switch on, to connect to the Wi-Fi, maybe do some shopping, maybe connect on Skype with grandchildren, and just to surf the net, so nothing too technical.
Yeah, so you're looking for people to maybe take up that volunteering opportunity. So just to reiterate, if there's anybody out there that can do a bit of technology, and you don't have to be an IT specialist.
Absolutely not, absolutely not. And another initiative that has come out of it really was way back in April. We have a new service being piloted called GLS, Get Local Support, and it's an online platform where individuals can request assistance with shopping or prescription collections. Now they really do have to be kind of stuck in that they don't have family there or a neighbour, and they're really quite stuck. And we have got volunteers who can help with that. As I say, it's online, and the volunteers it's done geographically. So say I applied because I needed a prescription collected and I was in Alexander Street, the volunteers could look to see where the customer was only by postcode, and then if the volunteer lived particularly near that, the request would go out and a volunteer could accept it, if I'm making sense. And then if a volunteer in Alexander Street couldn't make it, the search would widen out by postcode until the request was picked up. The first 3 months there were 544 requests, and 94% of these requests were picked up by volunteers. But don't panic, the other 6% of people still got their shopping and prescriptions by another method, using the Community Support Centre volunteers. So it's just another way of doing things online. If that person struggles to get online, or they don't have family, even from a distance, that could help them get online to make the request, they can call our dialogue project. This really needs volunteers to run, and we're really short of volunteers now because they've gone back to work. Students have gone back, so the number has gone. I think we had 115 volunteers at one time. So if there's anybody out there that would be interested in doing local volunteering, mostly shopping or prescription pickup, please give us a shout, that would be great. You don't have to be a driver because the ethos of this is local. However, we don't know how much shopping you might be asked to collect. We'd have to play it by ear, but you don't have to be a driver. drivers would be very welcome as well. And what's good about that is it's entirely flexible. If something comes in and you see the request but you're going away out, obviously you ignore it, somebody else will pick that one up. If another one comes in later, then you can pick that up. And of course it could probably be later in the day, earlier in the day, very flexible.
Just go back to the percentages you gave there, Anne. Was it 94 or 96%?
There was 544 requests in over April to the end of June, and then 94% of these requests were picked up by the volunteers, and then 6% weren't, and then we found another source to get the stuff picked up from another place.
So we're talking 100% success rate then?
Just about, I'm sure there were maybe one or two.
Yeah, but that's fantastic, that's absolutely brilliant.
And it's really interesting because it's a pilot and it's been piloted in Dundee, and to have this happening in April when it was all very busy anyway, and trying out this new system and seeing how it works is quite exciting. So it'd be great to keep that going if we could get a few more volunteers for that.
Marvellous. Now Anne, I'm going to ask you something about I think it's, you do the volunteer awards. Now they're normally in October, aren't they, that you do them? I'm just wondering what's going to happen with the volunteer awards this year, given that we're not able to go out and go to places and celebrate these kind of events. Have DVVA put anything into place that they can address this?
Absolutely. So the process for nominating volunteers for this has been the same, and the closing date was the end of August. The categories that we've got are Volunteer Team of the Year, which is quite self-explanatory. The Catherine Mackenzie Make a Difference Award. Catherine Mackenzie was the founder of Volunteer Centre Dundee back in 1997, and our first chief executive, and named after her. And that's for someone that's gone over and above with their volunteering. We've got a Trustee or Board Member of the Year, a Volunteer Manager of the Year, which is equally as important. We've got all these 32,000 volunteers. We need to recognise the people that are coordinating the volunteers. A Lifetime Achievement Award, and a COVID-19 Community Response Volunteer and COVID-19 Community Response Team of the Year. So these have all been nominated by the end of August, and I'm not involved on this side of it, but the shortlisting has all been done. And the Facebook and social media coverage started yesterday. They're now putting out so they've got it narrowed down to 3 per category, and they're putting on Facebook every day who they are. So the awards can happen this year in a venue like they have before, so they're all online, and it will be on the 22nd of October at about 7:30, and we'll see.
And how can we view that? Is there any way of knowing what's going on? Is it going to be streamed or anything?
I checked that out yesterday, but I've not had a final answer yet. I'm sure it will be. I'm not sure if you can join at the time or if it would be viewed afterwards. But I can let you know. Yeah,
if you let me know, we could always promote this on our Facebook live session, so we'll be interested to find out from Anne when that is. Now Anne, you work for DVVA, and so volunteering must be close to your heart. I want to ask you the $6 million question, and my question is, do you do any volunteering yourself then?
I do.
Do you? Oh.
Yeah, and I have done for quite a long time actually. When my family were younger, I did a lot of primary school volunteering when they were there. I've also done pet fostering, which was a brilliant thing, looking after pets in our own home, but of course the pets have to go back when the person they belong to recovers. Done pet fostering. I've got a friend who actually worked for a volunteer centre many moons ago, and she's a trustee of a charity, and she arranges a pop-up charity shop for her charity every year, maybe twice a year, so I'm involved in the pop-up shop. And I'm also a community fundraiser for CHAS, Children's Hospices across Scotland, so I do bucket shakes, I do backpacking, Christmas paper wrapping presents at Christmas, just whatever comes along. That's all changed at the moment, of course, as well, because we can't get out and about to do that. So the most recent thing has been a walk 100 for 100, so walking 100 kilometres and trying to fundraise £100 in September. So it's all good, it's really good.
Yeah, it sounds great. You're not just working in the volunteering capacity to encourage people to volunteer. You've actually got a good inside knowledge of what volunteering is all about, because you're actually doing it yourself, which is absolutely great. So you're a very good role model.
Well, sorry about that.
For everybody. And you've given us so much information today. and it's been really good to hear about all the volunteering opportunities there is and all the different roles there is. And I hadn't realised about the pet sitting service that you've just said you do yourself, so that's another great thing. And I think during lockdown, when I've been speaking to people, I've had to do a lot of phone calls, support calls. The amount of people that have said their dog, their cat, their budgie, their hamster has been such good company during these very lonely and isolating times. So I think that's a wonderful thing to do, is to look after a pet and make sure, you know, that they're great and they can go back to their owners eventually. All these volunteering opportunities, and for anybody out there that would like to know a bit more, how did they find out about all this, Anne? How can they now get in touch with you?
I'll just give the details in a minute, but I realise I've missed out one very important point, and that would be with regards to getting into volunteering. We get asked a lot about, does it impact on benefits? And the answer is no, it doesn't. As long as you keep your job coach or your workplace advisor up to date. And we're really just looking with volunteering for you to be doing maybe a 2 or 3 hour shift once a week, not lots and lots and lots in 1 week. So definitely not, it doesn't impact on benefits. So just need to say that. So if anybody is interested in hearing more, please do get in touch. I'm on anneleslie@dvva.scot. That's Anne with an E and Leslie with an IE at dvva.scot. And working from home, so on a mobile number 07889 571 072. And it would be great to hear from you, and any sort of question would be fabulous.
That's great. And if anybody wasn't quite sure about all the email address or the phone number, remember you can message us on Facebook Live and we can take your details and give them straight over to Anne. So there's lots of ways to get in touch. So I'd just like to finish off. Do you have anything else to say, Anne, before we?
Yeah, really just about our organisation, because I've been mentioning Volunteer Centre, Volunteer Dundee, etc. So just to clarify, we are, as Alison said, we are DVVA now, Dundee Volunteer Voluntary Action. We merged on the 1st of October 2019, so just over a year ago, and the companies that merged were Volunteer Dundee and DVA, Dundee Voluntary Action. Dundee Voluntary Action was actually set up in 1953. It's Dundee Association for Social Services, and so they're a much older organisation, have been on the go for about 66 years before we merged. And interestingly enough, they were the first organisation in Dundee to employ a social worker way back in the day. Volunteer Dundee, prior to that, were Volunteer Centre Dundee, and they were set up in 1997. It was one worker, one desk, one set of materials inside Central Library in the Wellgate, and they were called Volunteer Information Point. So when they merged, they would have been about 22. So quite a lot of experience, and lots of resources have been brought together. We now have over 50 members of staff, and we operate out of 4 buildings. So that's DVVA.
Well, you've certainly grown over the years then, from the humble beginnings of one person sitting behind a desk in the library. So it's amazing that you've grown so much and mushroomed, which is fantastic for the city of Dundee, that there's such a vibrant organisation behind so many volunteers and encouraging and promoting volunteering. So I'd just like to say, Anne, thank you so much.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
So we've had a really good insight into volunteering in Dundee today, and I hope you do get in touch. If you've got any questions or you want to know a bit more about it, please get in touch with Anne direct, or as I said earlier, you can send a message to Facebook Live. So thank you so much for joining us today. We do have a session next week. We will give you more about that. Robin will be hastily getting on the Facebook page and keeping you up to date with everything. But remember everyone, your fluid intake, your healthy eating, and anything to do with health, if you want to know anything more, please do get in touch with us at the Community Health Team. We've thoroughly enjoyed doing the session today, and we hope to see you again next week. Take care everyone. Bye for now.
Bye.